And they had their asses handed to them by Derek Carr.
No one has gotten less out of more talent than Mike McCarthy.
Even the Taylor Swift drama can't write him off.
She went on to become an Academy Award winner, and I'm, me.
I don't sit there at night and read through the comments and make sure everybody loves me.
I'm old man, screaming from my porch, you damn kids, get off my lawn.
I don't want to act like I know anything about mental health, but have you tried therapy?
My thoughts are, I actually do take offense to that because I could not disagree with you more.
From Wondery, I'm Annie Agar, and this is The Offensive Line. Welcome to The Offensive Line, you guys. We are here to make some picks, talk some shit, and hopefully make you some money. I'm Annie Agar, and today I'm joined by our guest. You can find him on NBC Sports and Fantasy Life, the fantasy football god himself, Matthew Berry. Matthew, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, Annie, how are you?
Great. Doing great. How are you doing is the question. We just were talking off air, lots of fantasy news happened recently, lots of injuries. Oh, yeah. And so I'm sure it's kept you very, very busy.
It has. It's been a lot of injuries so far, which you always hate to see as well. It's never boring. We're sitting here at a season where, Sam Darnold was one of the best quarterbacks in fantasy football last year. Daniel Jones was last week. Daniel Jones was a top 5 fantasy quarterback last week. So never boring. It's
weird times. It's only week 2 and it feels like we've been through hell and back so far in this football season. It's been very odd. Speaking of bad things that have happened, we like to start off the show with something called Too Offensive. It goes in line with the name of the show. And these are things that have happened this week that are just literally almost too offensive to even talk about. Starting with Bryce Young got benched for Andy Dalton. We could potentially see an Andy Dalton versus Drew Lock game in Germany. Germans, I'm so sorry. Bryce was benched after 18 games. Daniel Jones is going on 65. But he did win a playoff game. So there's that. Malik Willis revenge game. Green Bay at Tennessee. This might be terrible. I don't even know if you can call it a revenge game. Will Levis is going to have another awful throw. I'm almost positive. And last but not least, there are too many injuries. You guys, I never get excited about injuries ever. And they hurt us all. They hurt the player. They hurt the fantasy team. And there's just too many of them. I don't remember this many injuries happening this early in the season, but it's taken a hit on fantasy. So I have a couple fantasy-related questions to injuries. The first one being, what are the rules of how fans should act when a fantasy-relevant player gets injured? Because we obviously are thinking fantasy, but you also want to show that you care about the guy and you don't want him to be, hurt on the field. So are there unspoken rules?
This is one of the things that drives me crazy. And I feel like I'm old man, screaming from my porch, you damn kids, get off my lawn. Like, I feel like I'm that, but truthfully, like people don't understand that they are human beings first, and that playing football and their ability to play football, this is how they make money. This is how they provide for their family. For the most part, football players' shelf life is short. Like, it's a violent game, and they don't, the average NFL player is something like 3.5 years. Like, so to me, I always first off, never tag a player on social media. I think where it gets ugly is on the emotional side of it, which is meaning either people celebrating like, oh, I was going against Pacheco and then he went out. So woo, now I won. Or, I have Joe Mixon's backup. So I hope he doesn't come back. Like, when people do stuff like that, I think that gets ugly. Or if they're like, screw you, Debo. I can't, now my fantasy team's down the tube.
Have some decorum, people on social media. That's all we ask in the fantasy world. Just show they're normal human beings.
Yeah. And by the way, and if you can't show decorum, then at least just don't tag them and don't at them and don't DM them. Bitch at me. You want to bitch at somebody, bitch at me.
Tag Matthew Berry.
For the love of God, just, complain at Annie. Like, she'll take it. She doesn't care. She's not reading your mentions anyway.
No, not at all. Absolutely. I don't sit there at night and read through the comments and make sure everybody loves me. I never do that. Are you kidding me? Absolutely not.
I think being on social media as a public person, I think that it's awful. I think it's even worse for women. You know what I mean? Like, I think I get a certain kind of comment, and it's usually about if I've made a bad pick or something like that, but no one ever cares what I'm wearing.
You don't get feet pick questions?
No one asked me for feet pick. No one's asked me. No one's asked me to lower. Out. Yeah, no one's asked me to lower my shirt, or anything like that. Or where's my cleavage, whatever. No one's asked me stuff like that, Annie.
Yeah. Yeah, I look at mentions only when they're about the NFL videos. And if it's, the only time I actually pay attention to them is if a fan base or someone in that fan base says, oh, like this is actually how we felt about it. Because I try to make the joke so cohesive with how the fans felt that Sunday. So I just look at those, but any kind of negative ones, I'm like, it's usually Cowboys fans that are pissed I included them in the video. So I don't even bother.
Yeah, but you know what? Screw you. I mean, like Cowboy fans are super sensitive, and rightfully so, because you know what? Yeah. You guys have been a laughingstock for a long time.
This honestly is like the perfect segue into the next topic, because we're talking about Dallas and how terrible, how atrocious Mike Zimmer's defense looked. They're playing Baltimore. So it's Baltimore at Dallas. Baltimore is favored by a point. So I don't know what that tells you, because the Ravens are also 0-2. So it's a tough start for these two teams. And they had their asses handed to them by Derek Carr, who apparently now is like the next Tom Brady. I don't know what is going on with the Saints. Clint Kubiak is doing God's work over there in New Orleans. But we have this game, Baltimore, Dallas. Thoughts on this game? And we have to pick a winner of these games now. So Baltimore at Dallas +1. What are your thoughts?
Give me the Ravens. So first off, let's talk about this. You mentioned Mike Zimmer's defense, but by the way, how about just the Cowboys defense overall? This is the last two home games for the Cowboys against the Saints and the playoff game to your Packers. They've now given up over 40 points in 2 straight home games. Those are the last 2 home games for the Cowboys. And by the way, like Jerry's like, we're going all in, but then he signed CeeDee Lamb to a big contract, needed to do that. Signed Dak to a big contract, needed to do that. I get that, but they didn't add anything. Like you're going out there with CeeDee Lamb and Brandon Cooks, who's on the wrong side of 30, and Jalen Tolbert, and you got Rico Dowdle and Ezekiel Elliott in the backfield, and it's Dak doesn't run anymore, so it's basically become a one-dimensional offense, and they got away with it last year because they were so efficient and the defense played so well. But now the defense isn't playing that well, and they don't have as many weapons as they did last year. You felt better about the run game last year with Tony Pollard, even though Tony Pollard wasn't great, with Pollard and Dowdle than I think you do with Zeke and Dowdle this year. And listen, in fairness, they didn't have Jake Ferguson against the Saints, but I don't think Jake Ferguson is the reason they lost by 25 points. And the Saints could have put a 40 burger up. I have 2 thoughts here. Number one is that we talked about this on my show. We talked about it on Fantasy Football Pregame Sunday morning, which is on Peacock and the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. Shout out to my co-host, Jay Croucher, who said on Sunday morning, I say the Saints beat the Cowboys outright. So first off, I actually think we're going to look back at this at the end of the year and be like, oh, that loss to the Saints wasn't that bad for the Cowboys, because the Saints are actually really good. Having said that, you're looking at an 0-2 Ravens team, and I don't think their defense is any good. And then you've got a 1-1 Cowboys team, so they're both desperate. But I think the Ravens are honestly more desperate. They can't go to 0-3. And just in general, so the Dallas defense isn't as good as we thought it was. The Ravens defense isn't as good as we thought it was. So it comes down to this. 2 things for me, Annie. Lamar Jackson versus Dak Prescott. Give me Lamar. John Harbaugh versus Mike McCarthy. Give me John Harbaugh all day, every day. Which
is saying a lot to me, because Baltimore were calling for John to lose his job this past week with the questionable challenges. The man doesn't adjust. He'll go into like a 2-minute drill with like 1 or 2 timeouts. John Harbaugh, his seat might be getting hot, but that tells you a lot about how bad Mike McCarthy is, and I would know because I lived through it.
This has been my take on Mike McCarthy for forever. No one has gotten less out of more talent than Mike McCarthy over his coaching career. He had peak Aaron Rodgers. He inherits Dak Prescott, Micah Parsons, and CeeDee Lamb. No one has gotten less out of more talent than Mike McCarthy. His teams have been loaded, and they always fall short.
Well, you know what, Mike? I don't feel bad for him at all. That totally makes sense to me. It's terrible clock management. In my opinion, a terrible coach, even though he got us to a Super Bowl. Beside the point. So I agree with you on that. I'm Mike McCarthy stan, and I'm taking, you said Baltimore too, right? I'm taking Baltimore. I got to go with Baltimore. I think, like you said, you can't start out 0-3. That's right. I don't think they need to panic quite yet, but it's tough. And Dallas, this is my one take on Dallas. Dallas, their defense, they've struggled like the Green Bay game. I think Green Bay broke them, and I'm not just taking credit for that because I'm a fan of them. I think we broke Dallas, and they cannot play defense against these kind of like West Coast offenses. And there's a bunch of teams that play that offense, Green Bay being one of them. And I think they just rattled them off the other day on Get Up. I think it was like 6 or 7 of them, and they're going to struggle against those teams. And that that they might have a losing season. Don't even talk about playoffs right now, Dallas. Just get through a win. Just go play the Panthers and you'll get a win. Okay, so we both took Baltimore. I like those picks. I feel pretty strong about that. We're gonna do a little fantasy ride or die. So your ride or die this year is Kyler Murray. Is that correct?
Correct.
Which is looking pretty strong right now. That was a good game. A little perfect passer rating going on. Yeah. I liked it. Okay, last year's was Amon-Ra St. Brown, and they may or may not face each other this week. Detroit at Arizona. The Cardinals are +2.5 at home. So first of all, I want to talk about your ride or dies, but let's talk about that game first and give me a little breakdown of Detroit, Arizona, who you're taking in that game.
The Lions barely beat the Rams in week 1. And then the Cardinals blew them out in week 2. You know, one of the things that Detroit does is they bring pressure really well. Obviously, Hutchinson's just a monster. But Kyler is so mobile that the touchdown pass to Higgins, where Kyler Murray ran back and forth, ran like a mile back and forth by the line of scrimmage before, nailing Higgins in the back of the end zone. Give me the Cardinals getting points. If the Cardinals 2.5, wow. Look, Amon-Ra's a little bit banged up as well. What Detroit needs to get back to doing is running the ball. They're actually a run-first team. They're actually a team that wants to run the ball more. They have one of the best offensive lines in football. It needs to be sort of Gibbs and Montgomery, and try to stop going high flying. I don't know what's happening to Jared Goff, but he's been bad the last 2 weeks.
Not good. And Ben Johnson. But Johnny, my brother, is going to kill me when he listens to this podcast episode because he is the biggest Lions fan around. Ben Johnson, I don't know what was going on. You have an insane backfield with a healthy David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, and you pass the ball 55 times with Jared Goff. Terrible. But I do want to ask you, so with your ride or dies that you put out, do players know when you say that they're your ride or die? And do they care? Do you ever tell them, and do they care?
Sometimes I've told them before, and I don't think they care. And if they care, it's it's kind of a random, I interviewed Amon-Ra St. Brown last year, who was my ride or die. And I told him that. I said, hey, I don't know if you know this, you're my ride or die. So I interviewed him on the air, and he's just like, no, but hey, thanks for the support. He's like, whatever, what's he going to say? So I don't think players know. And if they do, I don't think they care.
Yeah, well, that's okay. At least it's all that matters is that they're your picks, and we enjoy them. We enjoy seeing them. So that's, the people, the fans.
So far, I'm off to a good start with Kyler. It's become such a big thing.
Although, Matthew,
yes,
Call of Duty comes out October 25th.
I know. Everyone,
Does this affect it?
I know. Everyone's making that joke. And,
it will never get old. It might actually. I don't know if it's old.
It's so, I don't know. You know what I mean? Obviously, I root for Kyler Murray. He's my ride or die this year. I don't understand what the Cardinals front office was doing. But it's become such a thing. It was just regardless of whether it's true or not, and no one has proven whether it's true or not. But regardless, just the fact that the team released it or mentioned that or let it slip is just such a F you to the player.
PR.
I saw that on social media. Some people made that joke, and I was just sort of like, man, Kyler Murray just absolutely destroyed the Rams at home. He had a perfect passer rating. He had good a game. He literally had as good a game as an NFL quarterback can have. He was truly brilliant. He made plays that most quarterbacks in the NFL can't even dream of making. And the response isn't like, yeah, Kyler, let's go, Kyler, new Cardinals, there's something going on in Arizona. The response is like, but yeah, week 6, here comes Call of Duty. And I'm just like, let the guy have a moment, for the love of God. Let the guy have a moment.
At least the fans are consistent. I love that. That's amazing. Okay, so you're taking Arizona in this one. I kind of want to disagree with you because I like Detroit. I like to see Detroit do well. I think I'm going to take Detroit. All right, next up, you guys, we're going to talk more fantasy. We're going to make you smarter about your fantasy team, but we're also going to fantasy draft ourselves. We'll explain more right here on the Offensive Line. TD, Tutty, taking it to the house, whatever you call a touchdown, they matter more at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. So are you guys ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something simple like picking a player to score an anytime touchdown. You guys know I'm a Packers fan, so I like these odds. I'm going to go with Josh Jacobs at +120 to score anytime TD. And then if you want to get a little spicier, I can take him to score the first touchdown of the game at +850. So are you ready to do a touchdown dance of your own? Score big with DraftKings Sportsbook, the #1 place to bet touchdowns. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code TOL. That's code TOL for new customers to get $250 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. And you get 1 month of NFL Plus Premium. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in New Hampshire, Oregon, and Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ftball. NFL Plus Premium offer available only to new and former NFL Plus subscribers. Additional NFL Plus Premium terms at nfl.com/terms.
All right, guys, we're back. Let's talk some fantasy. Most people have had some sort of fantasy football crisis already this year, me being one of them. So, Matthew, I'm going to give you some statements and you can fill in the blanks for us to maybe help us through this fantasy football season. The first one, the player I'd sell high on is blank.
I think Derrick Henry. I'm a little nervous about Derrick Henry, right? He's playing less than 50% of the snaps in both games so far this year. He's kind of score dependent. When the Ravens are trailing, they use Justice Hill a lot more. And so you've been bailed out each of the last 2 weeks because of the touchdowns. But as we just talked about earlier in the show, there's a chance this Ravens defense isn't great. Here's their upcoming schedule. So they're at Dallas this week. Then they're home to Buffalo, at Cincinnati, home to my Commanders. They'll kill my Commanders. But for the next 3 games, there's a chance they're trailing. And Derrick Henry, I think people are still feeling good about Derrick Henry. But if the Ravens defense doesn't turn it around, then so Derrick Henry would be my answer there.
Are they missing Greg Roman? What is going on in Baltimore? Okay, buy low on. Who would you buy low on?
Jamar Chase. He's Jamar Chase. And oh, by the way, this Monday night, he gets my Commanders. Who've they just got lit up by Malik Neighbors. They got lit up by Mike Evans in week 1. It's the worst secondary in the NFL. Monday Night Football, make no mistake, Jamar Chase going for 150 yards and 3 touchdowns. Your last chance to buy low on Jamar Chase is this week.
I like it. I can't believe blank is available in most leagues.
I'm going to say Derek Carr. I'm buying in. I'm buying in, right? He's had at least 21 fantasy points in both games this season. No quarterback in the NFL has a higher yards per attempt and touchdown rate and passer rating through 2 weeks than Derek Carr. I am buying in. He's available in about 80% of Yahoo leagues. Give me some Derek Carr. I'll also say Geno Smith, just in terms of if you're trying to replace Tua or Jordan Love. Not that you were going to replace Bryce Young, but you know what? I think we're going to look up at the end of the year and be like, wow, Geno Smith, top 10, top 12 fantasy quarterback. He's out there in almost 70% of leagues.
Okay, somebody you're not writing off. I'm still not writing off blank.
Travis Kelce. Yeah, you heard me. Yeah, Travis Kelce.
Even the Taylor Swift drama. Can't write him off.
Look, here's so I get it. Through 2 weeks, Travis Kelce is the number 30 tight end in fantasy on a points per game basis. He's averaging 4 fantasy points per game. He has just a 14% target share this season. So I get all that. Here's the positives. 89% of the snaps. He leads the Kansas City Chiefs in both routes and red zone targets. The last game against the Bengals, he got tackled at the 1 yard line. Another half yard, he gets in the end zone. His day looks a lot different. He had a 41-yard reception called back due to a holding penalty. I think if that penalty doesn't get called, his day looks a lot different. He's still Travis freaking Kelce. And so, I see people panicking in the streets. He's still going to be the number 1 red zone option for the best quarterback on the planet. I'm not panicking yet on Travis Kelce.
And if that doesn't work out, I don't know if you guys saw his outfit at the US Open. He can always go work in a bakery. Okay, the first week, James Cook went nuts. Then Alvin Kamara. This week, it'll be blank.
How about Devon Achane? 10 days for Mike McDaniel to prepare for this game against Seattle. They were the Thursday night game. Looks like it's going to be Skylar Thompson under center. And if you're Mike McDaniel, you have a choice. You can either get the ball to Devon Achane or let Skylar Thompson throw it. I think.
What do you think he's going to choose, ladies and gentlemen?
That's what I'm saying. He's a big play waiting to happen. He was kind of on a bum ankle Thursday night, and he's still got a massive workload. And so we don't know the health of Mostert at the time of this taping, Annie. But my expectation is that I think we're going to get 20 touches out of Devon Achane this Sunday, trying to keep that high-flying Seahawks offense off the field. So, yeah, give me Devon Achane for a big game this weekend.
I like it. Okay, and lastly, 3 kickers have more fantasy points than the top wide receiver. So my plan to fix this is blank.
Ban kickers. What are we doing with kickers? Stop it.
Right?
That's the problem. It is what it is. Like, I just...
You talk about Washington and kickers. Man.
Oh,
that was your star player this week.
Austin Siebert. Yeah, got the game ball. God bless.
Yeah.
Hail the Commanders. Hail victory.
7 field goals?
7 field goals. Tied a team record. No, set a team record. Set a team record.
He's so proud of it.
Here's what I'll tell you, Annie. So I am friends with Blair Walsh. Do you remember Blair Walsh, Vikings kicker?
Yes.
Blair Walsh.
Oh, the Blair Walsh Project.
The Blair Walsh Project, popular fantasy team name. So Blair Walsh plays fantasy football. And we had him on my show, my old ESPN show. We had him on the show. And I said to him, listen, Blair, I know you're like in 3 fantasy leagues. So I just ask you this. Should kickers be in fantasy football? And Blair Walsh said, no, it's too unpredictable. You don't want to get opportunities. Absolutely not. And I said, where do you draft a kicker if you're in a league that has kickers? It's like last round. So when you're telling me like a former all-pro kicker, even he won't defend kickers in fantasy football. Stop it. The answer is like, it's too fluky. It's too weird. It's unpredictable. You can't project it. Ban kickers. Superflex is the way.
Ban kickers. That should be the fantasy name from here on out. That's great because we are about to draft a fantasy draft. And you guys might be asking, what does that mean? What are we doing? Well, Matthew, we're about to draft the best categories for a fantasy draft. So we're going to go back and forth. We don't have to go by category. You can pick whatever you think it's going to be. So like there's venue, food and drink, the format, a punishment, and then wild card. You talked about banning kickers. That could be the wild card. We'll keep track of our picks, and then we can decide who had the better draft pick. Does that make sense?
It does indeed. So I'm going to say venue. I'm going to choose that category. I think that's important. Venue, right? In terms of just where you want to hold it. And so, listen, there's all sorts of great locations. I like going to a place, whether it's, Vegas, Nashville, Miami, whatever, even if you go to a restaurant, whatever. But if I get to choose any venue, how about the Sphere? I think that would be cool to do a fantasy draft in the Sphere.
One. I've not been to the Sphere yet. Fun fact, though, it has like millions and millions of screens, and it's still less than what Lucas uses. Okay, I am going to select, and this might be a bit of a shocker here for my first overall pick. I'm also going to go venue. We need to be loud. The group of us needs to be loud. You need food, and you need to be at a sports bar, and you need to be able to focus and have like your laptop and stuff pulled up. I've drafted at a sports bar before, and it's very fun, but it's a little too chaotic. So give me like a rented out sports bar. That might be a weird little sleeper first round pick, but I'm going with it. I'm sticking with it, guys.
I think you probably could just get a private room. You don't have to rent out the entire place.
Well,
but
it'd be more fun
again, I'm going with the Sphere, so
Yeah. It's true. That's true. We're very realistic here. All right, your number 2 pick. Go for it.
My number 2 pick. Well, I'm going to go format here. And listen, I put my money where my mouth is, because with format, have you ever played in a guillotine league?
I cannot say that I have.
Have you ever heard of it? Have you ever heard of the format?
I've heard of it, but no one's explained it in adamant detail.
It's very simple. You have a league. You draft a team like normal. When you are and you start a team like normal. The twist here is that you don't play head to head. At the end of the week, the team with the lowest score in the league gets cut, chopped forever. Your season's over.
Okay.
You're done. Here's
stakes.
and you just you keep doing that until obviously only one team remains. Here's the other twist. At the end of the week, the team with the lowest score that gets chopped, all the players go into the free agent pool.
Oh.
So every single week you're bidding on some team's first round pick, some second round pick. It's a format that's just taken off the last couple of years. And when I said I put my money where my mouth is, like, I like this format so much, I bought the company. So
my gosh, I love it.
Fantasy Life bought guillotineleagues.com. You play it for free, by the way. Anyone that likes that format wants to try. Here's the other positive. You can start a league whenever you want, Annie, because all you need is one more team in the league than weeks left in the season. If there's 4 weeks left in the season, you can start a 5-person league.
I tried auction. Auction sucks. I've spent probably 6 hours drafting auction. I did it one time. I'll never do it again. The draft sucks. The actual process is fun. But it's a lot of work. I do like Dynasty.
Is this because you're one of these youngins with no attention span? What's wrong with it? 6 hours?
If it's over 120 characters, I'm not reading it. My mom sends me articles. I'm like, no.
Where have you got to be? You couldn't spend 6 hours on your fantasy draft? What have you got going on in your life? Stop it.
Oh, I've got all of these important things to do, like drink alcohol and watch football. Okay, I'm going to go Dynasty. I do like Dynasty. It just is, there's like more at stake. I feel like you put your heart and soul into it, which is kind of ironic because I just said I don't like to take a lot of time with things. Okay, third pick. What is your third pick? What category are you going with?
I'm going to go punishment. Punishment, and I just think every league needs to have a punishment. And so I think that's it. There's a lot of great ones out there. I think it depends on sort of the tolerance level of the people in the league. Did you ever watch Game of Thrones?
Yeah, I've never watched it, but I know the premise of it.
Well, there's a very famous scene in Game of Thrones where one of the characters is paraded naked throughout the streets of of the town where it takes place, and everyone walks behind them. Behind this woman. So I've seen that reenacted where a guy had to wearing nothing but his boxers naked, and he's got a sign around it that says loser, fantasy football loser. And the rest of the league are all behind him in robes with bells going, shame, 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 which is what happens to this character in Game of Thrones. So I thought that one was pretty creative. That's
a good one. Yeah. That's just pain. There's some that are just straight up, they just hurt your ego so much. I would probably never play in that league again.
Yeah.
I'll go with punishment as well. I think I have a pretty good one because I saw this on TikTok the other day. TikTok, do you know TikTok, Matthew?
I do.
I know you do.
I'm familiar with the talk.
With the talk. So I think this would be great. It wasn't a punishment. She was just saying that she did this because she was a healthy person. I think it'd be a hilarious punishment to have the person go to the bar the night before and not tell them what their punishment is. Go to the bar the night before and say, we're feeling bad, you lost the league, we're going to buy you drinks all night, blah, blah, all this stuff. Get them really drunk. And then for every drink that they drank that night, they have to run that mile the next day. So they drink like 20 drinks, they have to go run 20 miles the next morning. That would be a straight pain, I think. So I'll take that punishment. Okay, next pick. I think you still have your food and drink and then a wild card pick.
Food and drink, food, whatever. I mean, I think I'm a pretty basic guy. Give me some pizza, give me some wings, give me some burgers. And I'm a big margarita guy. I think, just having food and drink, having whatever sustenance. Alcohol you need, whenever you like, just, a full bar, a service staff. That's important, somebody to help serve you drinks while you're sitting there focusing, on your mid-round sleepers. Yeah.
Yeah. I like it. Okay. I'm gonna, you know what? There is strategy with drafts. You gotta be ahead of the game sometimes. You got the first pick. So I'm gonna go with a different category and I'm gonna take something from you that we just spoke about. I'm gonna do the wild card pick and I'm gonna say no kickers, ban kickers from my draft. That's what I'm taking. I stole your pick there. Sorry about that, but you did get the first overall. Okay. Close it out with your wild card and then I will do my food and drink.
Draft day is the best day of the year. So it needs to be like an event. The best drafts that I've seen leagues do this, where there's a red carpet before you enter wherever they were drafting.
I just saw that on
One of the
like that on TikTok.
I forget if she was a wife or a girlfriend, but one of the significant other of one of the guys in the league is interviewing people. Each one has come in, what's your strategy, that kind of stuff. What are you wearing, and who are you wearing, everything like that. And then they come in and they've got the big board and it's a whole thing. So I think a destination and it has to be an event. It can't just be, hey, log on at 6:00, or hey, we're all coming over to Bob's house in his basement, or his living room. Like draft day is the best day of the year. Make it an event.
Okay. For my food and drink, I'm going to do the classic of just beer and wings. You can't go wrong. Give me some beer and wings to do this fantasy draft, and it's going to be a great draft. All right, guys, just to recap, and you can pick who had the better draft. Matthew's team, for the venue, he had the Sphere in Vegas. Food or drink was margaritas. Format was the Guillotine League. Punishment, Walk of Shame, and his wild card was a destination draft. My team, on the other hand, my venue was a sports bar, rented out, or a private room. My food or drink was beer and hot wings. Format is Dynasty. Punishment was a mile per drink, which means you run an excessive amount the day after, and my wild card was no kickers. Tell me who you think won that draft. Did you ever see the show The League? Best show. They need to bring it back. It is their life. Fantasy football is their life.
Not only have I seen The League, I was in The League.
Were you in it? You were in it.
I was in it.
I knew
Season
that.
3, episode 3, no big deal. Just saying.
I knew that. Dang it. Because they had a lot of guys come out. Like they had like Ocho Cinco on there, and I don't remember a couple other players.
Ton of cameos.
But no, nobody as great as you, Matthew. That's hilarious.
By the way, random fact, in my episode, again, season 3, episode 3, no big deal. It's funny. There's two plot lines. There's one, my plot line, which is Kevin desperately trying to get my business card and contact me and for me to give him advice to help him win his matchup. So Kevin's pursuit of me as the prettiest girl in the bar is one of the through lines. But the other one is Kevin and Jenny have a new au pair, a very attractive au pair that the other guys in the league are vying for. And the au pair was played by Brie Larson before she blew up. You know what I mean? And so...
Oh, that's funny.
And so anyway, both Brie Larson and I were in this episode of The League. She went on to become an Academy Award winner, and I'm, me.
Hey, don't sell yourself short.
Thanks.
Come on. You're here on this show giving me fantasy advice.
That's right.
That's
She's
hilarious.
an Academy Award winner, and I'm on the Offensive Line podcast.
So who's the real winner now? Our careers have
definitely gone in the same direction.
Who is the real winner now?
Right. She's starring in Captain Marvel, and I'm on the Offensive Line podcast. I'm like guest number 20 on the Offensive Line podcast. I don't know
if that's an insult or if that's a compliment. We're figuring that out.
All right, we'll figure that out.
All right, you guys. Coming up, we have 3 huge games this week with lots of important fantasy players and Travis Kelce. That's next. All right, guys, welcome back to the Offensive Line. We're going to talk about some big games this week, and one might hit a little close to home for Matthew. A lot of fantasy players may make or break your week. On Sunday Night Football this week, Kansas City visits Atlanta. We just saw Atlanta in primetime, and they were shocking, man. I did not expect it. So I want to know your opinions on this game. Kansas City -3.5 at Atlanta. Thoughts on this Sunday Night Football game?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really interesting one, right? The Chiefs haven't looked like the Chiefs through 2 weeks. They won the opening game against the Ravens, but maybe the Ravens aren't that good. They just lost at home to the Raiders. And then, they barely beat the Bengals, and they needed a couple of calls down the stretch to get bailed out there. Meanwhile, the same with the Falcons. Like Kirk Cousins looks like he can't move. And honestly, they should have lost against the Eagles. If Saquon Barkley catches that ball, right, game's over. Primetime game. Give me Patrick Mahomes over Kirk Cousins. I think it honestly just boils down to that.
Which primetime Kirk looked pretty good this Monday Night Football game. I don't know I think it was more the collapse of the Eagles. He had a bomb into the second row when he had 3 guys. I think Drake London was wide open in the end zone. Beside the point, you're taking the Chiefs. I will take the Chiefs as well. Next game, this might hit a little close to home for you, Matthew. This next bet is brought to you by DraftKings Sportsbook. Washington at Cincinnati. You mentioned it earlier. The second Monday night game this week includes your Commanders visiting the Cincinnati Bengals. Cincy is favored by 7.5. You just talked about the Bengals potentially almost beating the Chiefs. Came down to the refs once again, which honestly it shouldn't have. It came down to lots of things the Bengals did wrong. But thoughts on this game? You can be as biased as possible with your Washington Commanders.
Yeah, we're going to get killed. There's no way the Bengals aren't going to 0-3. They're absolutely not. We can't stop anyone in the secondary. Jamar Chase is going to go completely off. I think the future is bright with Jaden Daniels. We got to get a better offensive line. We got to get him more help. They're not moving Terry McLaurin around at all. They've got to do something 7.5 is too low. Give me the Bengals by 10.
Jamar Chase, this might be the breakout game.
Yeah.
It's Washington. I too am going with Cincinnati on this one. Hopefully we see more touchdowns than field goals. Lastly, we're going to do one quick thing called No Offense. Okay, guys, it's time for No Offense, where we have a chance to rant about things that are really bothering us. And let me tell you, I have a pretty good one. So we have to start it out by saying no offense. So, no offense, but David Tepper is probably the worst person maybe ever. I have never seen someone handle an organization so poorly. He's done some pretty awful things. The DJ Moore trade, throwing a drink at somebody, and then recently, Bryce Young being benched, who they traded away their future for, is now being benched for Andy Dalton. You can't say he hasn't done anything good for the Panthers because they have a new painting in their tunnel and a new logo on the 50-yard line, which they see all the time because they can't even seem to get past it. David Tepper is worse for Charlotte sports teams than Michael Jordan. This has just been awful. I don't know what is going on with that franchise, but he is not the answer. And that is my rant. Matthew, what are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are, I actually do take offense to that because I could not disagree with you more, Annie Agar.
Wow.
And I'll tell you why. One of the things you said was you've never seen somebody run a pro sports franchise worse than David Tepper. And what I will tell you, Annie Agar, stop it. So he made a bad draft pick. So he threw a drink at somebody. So he's not warm and fuzzy. You know what? Talk to me when the Carolina Panthers are under 6 different federal investigations. Talk to me when he has to pay $1.5 million to somebody that a flight attendant on his private jet for who knows what. That woman had to sign a non-disclosure. Let me know when David Tepper has over 40 different former employees under NDA. Let me know when David Tepper has to testify in front of Congress because of awful workplace. Let me know when David Tepper has not just one, not two, but 3 different ESPN long-form investigative pieces. Let me know when David Tepper has charged his own franchise $4 million to put the Carolina Panthers logo on his team plane for advertising. Let me know when David Tepper gets sued by his minority partners for illegal loans and financial shenanigans. Let me know in 3 different states, politicians who are always desperate to get pro teams literally say to David Tepper, we don't want your team. We're not going to do any public funding for a new stadium because we think being associated with you is too toxic. So you let me know when David Tepper does all of that. You let me know when David Tepper enables a general manager for 10 years who has racist emails. You let me know.
You know what?
Hang on, I'm not done. You let me know. You let me know when David Tepper loses the best left tackle in potentially pro football history because he wouldn't treat his cancer because he literally went to the left tackle and said, nope, we're not going to. You let me know when when David Tepper's head trainer gets investigated by the DEA. You let me know when all those things happen. You let me know when David Tepper has to change the team name because it's racist. You let me know when all those things happen, Annie. And then, and only then, can we have a conversation about who is the worst pro owner in sports?
I don't want to act like I know anything about mental health, but have you tried therapy? I think that might be a good thing for you, Matthew.
Yes, I have.
All
and you
the
know
Washington
what
fans out there.
You know what my therapist said, Annie? Let it out. And that's what I just did. That was cathartic for me.
You said you didn't even want to rant, and that was the best rant we've had on this show, maybe ever. I loved it. It was great. It was very cathartic, I'm sure.
For the 20 years that Dan Snyder was the owner of the Washington pro football franchise, we didn't have many playoff wins. We didn't have many wins overall. We did lead the league in investigations and lawsuits. Just saying.
There's always something. You guys are just so ahead of the curve all the time. All right, now that we've gotten that off our chest, some more than others, let's recap our picks. We agreed on Baltimore, Kansas City, -3.5, and Cincinnati -7.5. Matthew picked, this is where we're different. Matthew picked Arizona +2.5. I picked Detroit -2.5. All right, Matthew, thanks so much for joining us today. Make sure to check him out at Fantasy Life and NBC Sports. That's it for this week of The Offensive Line. Be sure to follow us wherever you get your podcasts, and you can watch our full podcast episodes on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And as always, guys, just remember, Des didn't catch it. See you next week.